Hello friends, how are you? Hope all are well wherever you are. Welcome back to my channel. Today we will see how to create the gitignore files and why do you need the gitignore files. Um, actually, whenever you work in a big project, it is mandatory. You have to put a gitignore files in your root directory, or not even root directory. You can put any directory inside your repository. You can have multiple the gitignore files. So why do you need a gitignore files? There is it is the gitignore files. It is a text file that tells the git that these are the files I don't want to send to the remote repository, or not only files, the folders even, you should ignore those file and folders, don't send to or don't track them, don't stack them, when you're adding the files, don't stack them, don't add them to Git repository, so I mean, it is very important, a lot of times, you have very important, a password, some some very important files, you don't want to send to the remote repository, otherwise everyone will see those files. So you can place that gitignore file in the root directory of a project, or you can create a global gitignore files, and you can put the condition, which of the files folders you don't want to add, you want to ignore those files, I'll go through example, step by step, how you can create a multiple conditions, so what kind of files you want to ignore, such as your log files, API keys, the password, the different credentials, different secrets, sensitive informations, some of the files which will class files, some of the files which will create system will create, you don't want to send them, they're not important for your, for you, to add all them to the remote repository, so you want to ignore those files, so how to do it, we'll create at first the file, gitignore files. So let's say don't ignore. See, I just create gitignore file, so we'll open this file on a notepad, and we'll put different conditions, what sort of file and folder it should ignore, so you can, if you press the hash sign and if you write anything, it will ignore, it won't consider as in condition. If you want to just ignore a file, you can just put the name of the file dot and the name of the file, whatever the name of your file you want to ignore, just put them file. That will ignore. This is how you write a condition, dot file name. This is how it will ignore that file name, it could be your dot html file or dot txt file, the name of the file, the force.txt or name.txt, anything, you want to ignore, put the file name dot that file name. And if you want to ignore a directory, so this is how you will put the condition, name of the directory. Let's say your name of the directory is git folder. You want to ignore that folder, so just write the name of the folder and /, and this will ignore that folder, so basically another way you can do, let's say you want to ignore, you want to put the wildcard. The wildcard, basically it will match 0 or more characters, so let's say, for example, you put the wildcard, the star dot log. So if it's fine. Wherever it will find that .log extension, it will ignore. It won't add to the when you do the git add command, it will not add those files. Another way you can do is that that sign. I don't know what this sign name. Wave sign. What is that sign? Yeah. Okay. The shift. Windows shift. Yeah. Shift, and then it's in the hash button. There's the sign. I don't know what's exactly the sign. If anyone knows, please put in a comment. So if you want to ignore, you can do name.html, and then if you do that sign, that will ignore that file. It will know it will git know that file should be ignored. It will never add to the git when you're adding the git files. And you can put another sign, which is a negation sign. Another way you can tell the git you can ignore those files. You can put the prefix like this. We call exclamatory sign or negation sign. So if you put, let's say, negation myfile.log, which means that myfile.log will never be ignored. It will add to the git. So another way is saying not myfile.log. Don't ignore this file. You add this file. Even though we use the wildcard.log, but we put the condition here, negation sign before that, myfile.log. Don't ignore this file. You can add this file. So, but if your condition is like this, let's say you put the name of the folder you should ignore, and then if you put again here negation sign and logs, and then you put the myfile.log, what it will do, it will not ignore, because this file is inside the log folder. But before that, I put the logs to ignore that folder. So ultimately, that file will be ignored. So make sure, how you are putting the condition, So if you use before that line, if you use the log folder, the directory, and /, then that folder will be ignored. But within that folder, I put that file, myfile.log. So ultimately, whole folder will be ignored. So ultimately, that file will be ignored as well. Even though I put the negation sign, So this make sure, you understand, when should you use a negation sign, If you want to use, you can also use a double asterisk, double wildcard. That means, so if you put this condition, it will look for any files, any directories it have that's names, it will ignore. Also, you can put wildcard / logs, and then / again wildcard.log. You're saying match all files ending with the log in the log directory. So you could have a different folder in your project, so you can make sure within that folder what type of file you want to ignore, With this condition, we are saying match any files and folders with this name, ignore. And now here we're saying within that folder, if you find this file name, it could be doc file, it could be HTML file. I'll just put the log, and it could be anything txt. You ignore this, Another way you can do logs / wildcard / dot log. Now I'm saying here that match all files ending with dot log in the logs directory as well as subdirectory. With these two wildcard, I'm saying within subdirectory, inside the log folder, there's maybe other folders. So if you find log folders and inside the subdirectory different folders, if you find .log, you ignore this, So this is how you can use the wildcard with the files names and folders, and as I said earlier, if you put the hash sign and if you write anything, it will ignore, the gitignore files will never count that line, So guys, these are the sort of conditions, you can use how to ignore different folders and files, when you're working in a project, If I save these and if I add name.html file or myfile.log, it will ignore, So I hope you guys you can utilize this in your real project, and you will find plenty of resources online, if you get trouble, just do a bit of Google search, you'll find plenty of example, how to do it. But these are the basic, you can follow these and you can put this .gitignore files in your root directory, or it could be different folder in here. I can put the new folder test. Within the test folder, I can put again another gitignore files, So you can play with these. So this is very important, to know how to use the gitignore files and how to set up gitignores, how to create gitignores, and what sort of conditions you can use, to avoid different files and folders, So I hope you guys enjoy, please do subscribe my channels and it will encourage me to create more content. I hope see you next video. Thank you. Thanks. Bye-bye.